like to understand the basic relationship of human and nature. First is a stewardship with faith and belief, and having the correct ideology is very important. Later on, we will discuss the history of environmental movement in a modern society. Look at the solution in environmental problems. Differentiate between pseudoscience and real science, as well as the applications and challenges of environmental sciences. One can examine human-nature relationship, its conservation and justice, based on Buddhism, where all beings and cycles are linked by cause-effect relationships. On the other hand, Confucianism, man and nature should be in harmony. Zhangzi is about how to get away with an approach of infinity. Since nature is unlimited, we all learn to become Xiao. However, Christianity is about love. All creatures are created by God and are to be treated equally. God even created light. But in China, the communism has turned into dictatorship and advocates that man must conquer nature. Not sure if this is the nature of Chinese culture, but all the above is not science at all. So let's take a break and focus our lecture on environmental science and videos on more about science. Let's go through the history of environmental movement. Human creates environmental problems, so this ties with humans' history. We may start from the Industrial Revolution in mid-19th century England. Air pollution was caused by burning of coal, thus discharge laws were created to control by punishing those who polluted the environment. Moving into the United States, last century they had started the Sierra Club in 1890, forming the Yosemite National Park to protect and defend the environment. Now country parks are everywhere around the world. After the Second World War, a strong conservation movement emerged, covering issues of deforestation, whaling, overfishing, overuse of pesticides, namely a green revolution. After all, the Green Revolution is not that green. In 1960, anti-war movement also came along with Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring, complaining DDT had caused declined population of American eagles. This led to the birth of US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency in the United States. Conservation movement carried forward to the 70s and 90s until today. An international cornerstone of this movement was marked by the first Earth Day held on April 22, 1970. This led to the Stockholm Conference 1972, and world leaders had started to act together. The history of environmental movements tipped at the intentional bombing of the Greenpeace flagship Rainbow Warrior, which was an anti-nuclear movement campaign in South Pacific in 1985. The incident awoke the world on nuclear splat issues and on supporting the non-government organizations in the movement. In 1992, the Rio Earth Summit took place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, with the Rio Declaration to protect the global environment of biodiversity and sustainable development. World Summit later in 2002 formulated the Agenda 21 policy. The most recent summit in Paris 2015 also came with a great success of COP21, COP, Conference of the Parties. COP21 in Paris signed an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, dealing with greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, adaptation, and finance starting in the year 2020. Therefore, the environmental movement have been triggered by not only scientific researches, but also social awareness and reinforcements by public regulation, practices, and policies. With modern science and technology, we have recently moved forward to solving the environmental problems by using new chemistry, creating a clean energy future. Ecologist approach concerns damages that threaten the ecosystem for energy production. Then there arise a series of approaches from multiple disciplines, measurements to protect the ecosystem, including developing new taxes and economic charges, develop electric cars with new engines, make new policy, take care of the people in need, assess health risks of using coal or other dirty engines, make better roads and buildings, balance conservation, use urban design to reduce energy use, and develop sustainable energy policy, etc. Coming back to science, what are the characteristics of science? What kinds of scientific studies do we do? What is science? Use predictable, quantifiable, and logical evidence to prove hypotheses. There are also myths or multiple truths about the danger of chemicals. Everything on Earth is literally made of chemicals by definition. Therefore, science is a set of methodologies to guide a proper examination to all these claims and to help us find out the ultimate truth. Science in practice consists of a scientific method, the purpose of your research, a hypothesis, one or many experiments to prove your hypothesis, analysis of results and data, and a relevant conclusion. First, you need to identify the issue. Say, start with a correlation study from which the data may suggest a hypothesis. Once that you have a hypothesis, you may design an experiment or go to the field to collect relevant data. Finally, from the data you can analyze and interpret the results, making your conclusion or even publishing a paper on this project to suggest solution to an environmental problem. And eventually, you are influencing the society and making changes with societal impacts. Science in practice is about asking questions, making investigation, and analyzing. But science was developed from empiricism to uniformitarianism. The present is the key to the past, as suggested by James Holden, a Scottish geologist from the 17th century. Holden examined the Earth majorly about global disaster or geological events from the past, which shapes what the Earth and become in the present time. In environmental science studies, we do collect data from the past. We can sometimes develop parsimony, but sometimes it will lead to uncertainties. Science is also repeatable and most importantly, predictable. Our scientific thinking should be testable despite elusive proof. Modern science also involves big data science, studying trends and predicting our future, such as the study of the impacts of global warming, which became a global warming. Environmental quality is tied to social progress. Poverty affects quality of life in many ways. The poor can be caused and be suffering from environmental damage, such as drought. Economic inequality can lead to unwise usage of resources and increased population from the poor, causing environmental degradation, which loops back to poverty as a vicious cycle. Our constant challenges persist. The poor is suffering more from global warming. It is the biggest environmental justice issues we have. The 1995 Ohito Declaration on Religions, Land and Conservation called for respect to Mother Nature. Issues like locally unwanted land use, LULU, L-U-L-U, poverty, and environmental degradation or even environmental racism still persist. What about the rich that is causing environmental degradation? Environmental ethics in developing countries like China and India, rising GDP causes more environmental degradation. As China emerges as an economic power, imagine the resources they use with 1.3 billion consumers. It is easy to postulate that if we stop economic growth, we can stop environmental problems. Any kind of conclusion about human is the cause of the problems won't help us solve any problem. It doesn't help us move forward. Let's watch the next video to study the systems in our environment to understand our environment on this planet Earth.